Hello and welcome back to Perspective Podcast, where today we've got a special guest on, Hugo.
Hiya. I usually produce the podcast, but I'm on today to show you a bit about my product. I've just done my presentation, so it's like, I don't know.
Fresh out
Very
of it,
fresh.
ready to go.
Well, it's all over, which is quite good, but
So Hugo, do you want to give us a bit of insight into what your final outcome is?
yeah, so I chose the LAA brief, like a lot of people. I think that was the main kind of brief this year. The workshop was packed to the end.
Yeah,
Because of
I
it.
saw that.
Mm.
But yeah, so the brief I kind of had for myself was to design flexible solution style lighting. So
Mhm.
mainly it's for remote workers and I think at the higher target end, administrators.
Okay.
So yeah, so the idea is you can move the light, swivel it at the base,
Mhm.
and then they can pull it out. So it's more of a task light for their work.
Really nice.
So
Lovely.
I think kind of the main part of the whole light is the material on the edge. So it's called solidable. It's like a wool resin composite made by some small company in the south of England. Kind of the aim is to create quite a tactile and kind of textured finish.
So what was your reframe brief? How did you come about this?
So the initial brief of the lighting project was to try and find some kind of gap in the domestic market. Started researching by trying to find what current problems were with, just as a broad term. Eventually came across the fact that I think it's around 51% of remote workers said they struggle to keep work-life balance at home.
Yeah.
This struck me as kind of quite important.
Mhm.
You kind of want to design for. Kind of going from this, quite a wide kind of opportunity to make, some sort of product. Kind of looking a bit deeper into it, a lot of this is they couldn't really have a, flexible schedule.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, remote workers would kind of let work pile up, start working late into the night, and this would kind of wreak havoc on their routine.
So you mentioned the material on the outside was made from, was it wool and resin?
Yeah, so it's called solidable. It's a wool resin composite. It's made of 50% wool and 50% resin.
Okay.
I think the bioresin itself is 50% natural material. So overall, it's a 75% natural product.
Oh, okay.
So people are using it as kind of like an alternative to marble.
It does have that appearance. When
Yeah,
I first saw it, I thought it was going to kind of be
Yeah.
very expensive.
I mean, I liked, big part of the brief was kind of introducing tactility to the lamp. I think kind of it was important to kind of continue this, but something that, say for example, if this moved up and that was made out of marble, it would just fall over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of trying to find an alternative material that's also sustainable. I found this and it turned out to work really well.
Really nice. Did you find making it was challenging, or was it actually something?
It was challenging, but I enjoy doing it at the same time. Unfortunately, trying to get the material as sheet form would be 10 times easier. Wasn't an option because it was about a 7-week lead time
Oh, wow.
going into it.
It's like the whole length of the project
Yeah.
then.
Pretty much. So
Yeah.
I would just miss the deadline. If I couldn't get it, which is, I don't know, a bit of a panic moment.
Oh.
But luckily, I contacted the company. They were kind enough to send me basically loads of these little samples.
Oh,
I
okay.
see.
So instead of
yeah.
using the sheet, I had to basically glue all of them together. I think you saw it
Yeah.
it was in the workshop, yeah. Sand them all down to try and get effect. But yeah, it worked quite well.
I wouldn't notice until you said
No.
that you stuck them together. That's when I saw the lines, but it doesn't look out of place at all.
But yeah, overall, I enjoyed making it. It's my favourite part of the project.
Amazing. Looks really nice. I think it's a really cool concept. I think even there's a little bar on the front, and that's just so subtle, but it's so obvious to me that means you push it up that way. It doesn't go the other way, and it doesn't detract from anything, but it works really well in terms of nudging people to use it in the right way. I think
Yeah.
it's really successful.
It looks like something you want to interact with.
Absolutely.
Like when it was just sat over there before we started filming, I was kind
That's
of
good.
Yeah.
inquisitive it is
Yeah.
into its kind of form. Obviously, I knew it was a light, but even the way it moved, what the material was, especially kind
Yeah.
of the reasoning behind the CMF of it, I think is really interesting. So how much do you think this would sell for if you were to kind of produce it commercially?
It cost, I think, £264 with a 20% markup based on
Okay.
the current manufacturer. The kind of figures I got from my process document were based on if it was making, I think, 100 units.
Okay, so still
Um,
quite small scale then. Is
Yeah,
that purely because of the choice of material, or was that just kind of what you landed on as
I mean, it's
a
just
base figure?
a round figure.
Yeah.
To kind of work with the process document. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, how many would you make?
Millions.
Millions, tons of
One in
them.
every home.
Yeah.
I think you might have been asked this already, but I'm just not sure what this piece
Yeah.
of cable is doing from the top down to the bottom. I feel like maybe I'd just make that a little bit tighter so it's sort of
Yeah,
sat in it.
that's one brought up by pretty much everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree with Millie. Maybe that's the only thing, or maybe the kind of silver fixture at the top. Maybe if that was black as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was another point
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
Someone suggested like a bronze or maybe a brass.
that would be nice.
I think that would be lovely. I think it would
Yeah.
complement it, especially when it's in this glow section. I feel like
Yeah.
that would really
Mm.
help it out.
Because I don't know. I suppose it would act as a bit of like a merger between the black base and
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
I was gonna say it kind of, even though like some of the forms around the bottom is quite harsh, I think it kind of has a soft kind of feel to
Definitely.
it. With
Yeah.
kind of the glowing and the kind of material choice is kind of wool is soft, and then you've got kind of the curved bottom of it. I think
Yeah.
it does feel quite homely.
Okay, so this is my final outcome for, again, the LIA brief. Mine kind of had a similar vibe to yours, Hugo. It was about hybrid working and the trend of hybrid working. And again, like kind of through my primary research, I realised that people feel quite lonely when they're working at home, or when they're in the office. They don't have such good connections between colleagues and stuff. And there's also this employer trend of trying to get people back into the office, so making it more cozy, making it more comfortable. So that kind of, this just plays on that basically. It's kind of designed to help connect people at work.
Do you want to tell us about kind of what it does?
Yeah, of course. So each of these are coasters. So when the light's on, it sort of glows in the middle. The idea is that it would be sat in the middle of a table. So that's why it's kind of this twisted form, so that the light can be visible from all aspects. And it's mostly been designed around the idea of chatting over a drink. So a lot of my primary research was, so I spoke to a few CEOs and stuff about what they would be interested in gaining. And again, they agreed with the connection idea and bringing people together. And then when I asked people what kind of their common activities and conversations that occurred in the break room, a lot of them said like small talk, talking about the weather, asking someone if they want a cup of tea. And that kind of stuck with me quite a lot, that idea of making someone a drink. It feels like you're kind of extending an invitation to connect and have a conversation. And also, as a British culture, there's a lot of like, oh, do you want to come in for a cup of tea? Like, do you want to chat over a drink? And that's kind of where this idea came from. So yeah, each of these is handmade. So considered craft was quite a strong like element of my project. So this is, I think, probably, I'm trying to think how long ago now, probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago, this was on a tree. So it was a branch on a tree. So you can kind of see with this one, they have warped a fair amount. So that's kind of one of the main things I'd change, because they don't work as well as they should. But basically, the idea is, the main premise is, when someone comes into a room, they'll make themselves a drink and they'll grab a coaster from the light, which will turn the light on. So it's got a sensor on the top, not in this prototype, but I've figured out the circuit. Basically, as soon as you take a coaster, the light will turn on, sort of signify the fact that you've come from the work into a break space, and that you kind of, that change in work mode to relaxing and being able to make the most of your break. And then as more people arrive and make drinks and stuff, they take out a coaster, and that therefore there's less coasters blocking the light, so it gets brighter. So the idea is, the more people in the room, the brighter the light gets. So it sort of reflects the atmosphere that's going on around, but subtly and sort of unconsciously. It's kind of been designed so that, obviously in offices, they're not going to turn all the lights off in a break room because that's unsafe. So it's been designed around having like normal overhead lights on or like big windows and things like that, but this just creates a pocket of light. It's kind of a lot of what I was looking at the beginning was like campfires and this like kind of like these circular fire pits, like candles, all of this idea of snuggling in, feeling comfortable, relaxed, and people connecting almost in like this circular fashion, which is why it kind of came into this cylinder.
I mean, even here with like extremely bright lights, it's still like, stands out because it's a completely different color and it's all like kind of wrapped around.
Exactly.
Which I like.
Yeah, so that's a good point. A lot of my research went into like different bulbs. And one of the sponsors of the brief is CTO Lighting, obviously. And on their website, they recommend like, I think it's 2,700 Kelvin or something for their bulbs, which was really helpful for me because it's sort of their overall like lighting vibe, I guess, is very cozy and like these warm emanating lights, which is sort of what this is trying to do. So once I tested with lots of different types, but this one was exactly say the warmest and kind of contrasted the sort of classic cold office lighting that generally occurs everywhere. But yeah, well, I haven't actually got a mug. But we've got Jess's water bottle to show how this works. So this is the sort of size. It's also, bear in mind, this water bottle is probably taller than a mug would be.
Very tall.
Very, very tall. But yeah, this idea of like the coasters kind of being scattered around the table. They've also they've also got intricate patterns, so feel free to take some. And like little pinch points and stuff.
Were these done in the workshop?
No, these were done in a local craftsperson's workshop. So it was they were, carved on the lathe into symmetrical diameters, and then cut the holes, let it dry. Like, there's a lot of drying processing between this because, as I said, it was green wood. It was literally on a tree.
Yeah.
And then cut the keyholes and carved the pattern on the outside. So I tried to squish as many together as possible when I was carving to try and make it like a sinuous, continuous line. And sort of the proposed idea about manufacture is that each craftsperson, so it would have several different ones throughout the UK, each wood carver would have the general size and shape that they need, but it could be basically any wood. And essentially they would be using wood that's already been cut down. So they're using what's already been cut down rather than cutting down for the product. That was kind of the main goal. And so this is partly to do with the sizing as well. Like it's generally branches would like allow for that sort of diameter. And then they can put any sort of pattern on. So as long as they've got it's kind of like a canvas, the general sizing and shapes and form and stuff stays the same. And then the outside they can basically do anything.
Is it the pattern in the sense of kind of what's carved into the wood?
Yeah.
On that side? Okay. So when I say this, I just noticed when I like
they're perfect.
Yeah. So actually, I don't know how I'm going to show you this, but the way that you have this, pop it on the top.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Oh, I thought they would.
Yeah, lots. I think that's one thing I need to maybe make clearer is that you pull it from the bottom, because pretty much everyone I've spoken to has tried to grab it from the top.
I mean, I suppose you can see there's a bit of a sample.
Yeah, well, that's also another thing that probably needs to change, because this slant is a little bit too early on. So like if you imagine half a circle, I've done it on half a circle so the coasters start to slip.
Yeah.
So if I just given it a little bit extra and done a slightly shorter slant, it would have worked better. But yeah, the idea is that the light should come out from under there and kind of sort of, the idea in sketches it works great. In sketches you're like brilliant, but actually that's why I enjoyed making it so much, actually, because the function could be better, but I know how it can be better.
Yeah.
And also all of this like warping is kind of lovely, but ultimately I think if this was being made, it wouldn't be made in 4 weeks. It would be made in 4 months, and it would have like prolonged drying periods. But part of the reason that it's been cut from a branch is so that it's been done in the round.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of see all of the rings are concentric, which is why there's no splits. Because otherwise, if you're doing this on like kiln dried or just like seasoned timber, probably would split.
Yeah.
Because it would follow all the rings.
Do you have that problem with one of your prototypes with the coasters? Was there an issue with the wood there? I think I remember.
Yeah, slightly, yeah. A lot of the prototypes were sort of done in the wrong material, so done with foam and chemi wood and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of them did split, and so it kind of just proved the concept that I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But it was really fun. I've never really carved anything before, so being able to learn for this project was great. And actually, some feedback I got was it might be even nicer if it's not a local craftsperson that's carving it. They make the general thing, and then it gets. So companies have bonding days and stuff where they go off and do an escape room or something. This could be an example of that. So they get a kit. It's basically a kit. So they don't get the light at this point, but they get 10, 20 coasters. And then everyone does some sort of nice design on their coaster. And then when it all arrives in the packaging, so I did it as like a nice tube, and then you kind of take it off like a little celebration. They can be presented with the carvings that they did, and then they've got something to talk about, so they can kind of explain like why they made it like that, a little bit like when you go on lovely like ceramic cafe dates and stuff, and you like do the nice painting and stuff. It's always quite a nice conversation when you get it back a few weeks later. I
was gonna say I like how each coaster could represent a person, but I think you've summed that up really well there by kind of introducing that idea into it. I think it could be like a really kind of unique experience for teams to do, because I know I've done them in the past and it's just kind of like the typical build a marshmallow tower or something. But this is nice because you get to put kind of a stamp of your own on it, and it's something that could be a permanent fixture within your office.
Exactly, yeah. But it was really fun to do. I mean, at the beginning it was a bit stressful because I just had no idea how I was going to make it work. But it's definitely been something that I've really enjoyed. A bit like you, like the workshop part, making it was definitely my favourite aspect. And you learn so much when it goes wrong. Like, for example, I had such a stress when they didn't work, like when they warped, and I'd even sanded them even more to fit over the top.
Yeah. And
it was like 2 days before my presentation. I was like, oh my God, it's not going to work. But actually, it's fine because I know how it would work, and I know how I'd change it. The main mistake is cutting these holes so early on.
Oh,
because
really?
I don't know where I've got one, but one of them literally is meant to be a circle like that. It's gone like.
Oh,
I think it conveys the idea really well, though.
Yeah, it's definitely
information you can see like
clear.
How it will work within an office.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I think that was also like using brass, or this isn't brass, but it would be brass and like rich natural materials was sort of quite a key part to it. 'Cause you want to use those luxury materials, but you also want to play to their strengths. So a lot of what I was doing, I think why I enjoyed the making process so much, was basically halfway through my project, I was like, right, got to get down to the workshop, figure out the materials I'm using and work within those constraints, which has definitely like paid off for the coasters and the base and stuff.
Oh, I should be really proud.
Thank you very much.
So what have you decided to name your light?
So this is the candid light. So the idea is that it's candid in its materials and where they've come from, and it's candid in the conversations that it will facilitate, essentially. And you won't believe how long it took me to find some sort of name for this. Probably too much procrastination. But yeah, it's called Candid.
So this is Muller Twist and Go. I chose to do the Muller brief, which focused on kind of making yogurt easier to consume on the go, as it's probably a product that you wouldn't want to take out with you at the moment to eat. And this, really interested me, probably because I did packaging on my placement as well. And it just kind of seemed like an interesting topic. I've kind of liked to do more kind of solution-based designing in the past. So I thought I'd kind of put this into practice for the big thing and have a go. But yeah, this is my final outcome. So it's a little yogurt pot made for the Muller Corner product, which separates the corner balls, which I've called the inclusions throughout the project, and the yogurt. So in my primary research, I found that was kind of a key kind of make or break point for the product. My user found it really difficult to kind of be able to tip all the balls into the yogurt without them either going on the floor, missing, just kind of spilling, or not getting a good mix on them. And that is kind of what the whole Muller Corner product is about, is the satisfaction of being able to mix in those inclusions and have that kind of fun element and interactiveness to the design. So that's something I really wanted to incorporate into this product. Also kind of research showed that people did really like Muller Corner and they wanted to be able to eat it on the go, but it's just something that they either bought and then forgot a spoon, or they had to take a yogurty spoon around with them, or there wasn't a bin to throw it into. And I kind of tried to tackle a number of problems throughout the brief. And in my final reframe, I kind of ended up with the phrasing of how might we create a on-the-go yogurt solution for Muller Corner, which is recosable and mess-free. That came with, I think, 8 different spec points split into should and could. They kind of entailed about having a spoon incorporated into it, the inclusion, mixing element, and a few different things, which did make it quite hard to design for it sometimes, as I felt like I was trying to solve like 10 problems at once. But we got there in the end. Yeah, it's quite simple the way it would work. It's designed for the on-the-go breakfast occasion. So the idea is this would be sold in a multi-pack of 6. I didn't bring the multi-pack with me, but you can see that on screen, I'm sure. So it's sitting there. You'd buy it at the beginning of the week or at the end of the week for the week ahead. You'd be able to take one with you in the morning for breakfast and just put it in your bag knowing it's safe. There's no film, so it can't get pierced in your bag and go everywhere. It's kind of this ergonomic shape, so it's really easy to hold in your hand. It's just about palm-sized for me. I've got quite small hands. But it'd work by the user peeling off a quality seal here. So this kind of keeps the movement element intact, and you can ensure that nobody's kind of released the balls into the yogurt before you want to eat it. That'd be disappointing. Yeah. So you'd peel this part off. You'd then spin this round. The balls would be sat in here. So by spinning this, a plate moves and releases them into the yogurt. The user would then be able to peel the spoon out of this branding strip, which sits around the middle. Then you'd end up with something like this. It's just a strip. You could then slot it together, which becomes your spoon. You'd open it up. It's on a hinged lid, which means that you've only got 2 things to carry. When I was doing my research, I found that a lot of the times people find it hard to juggle a spoon, a lid, a pot, and then potentially something else as well that you'd have to hold, like a phone or keys. So yeah, really easy. This little lip sits on your hand nicely, and so does this hinge, kind of rests on your finger. Be able to eat the yogurt. Once you're done, it is made of wheat fibre, the whole product, and has a seaweed inner lining, kind of coating made by Notpla. That's just so it increases the barrier properties of the wheat fibre, as it doesn't really have much, and because it's a dairy product, it's got a very short shelf life. So because of this, you can just either throw it in the recycle or on the ground if you really have to, because it's compostable. But yeah, it is a circular solution, which was kind of a big part of my process. I wanted to make it something that was really eco-friendly, and that Muller would be invested in themselves. They care a lot about the environment and their farmers. So the material would actually be sourced from the Muller farmers themselves. They would grow the wheat, which would then be taken to, I say, a third-party manufacturer, because they don't have the capacity at the moment to produce it themselves. They don't have kind of pulping facilities. It'd then be made at the third-party manufacturer, and then it'd be sent to Muller. It'd be filled and sealed into the little pots, and then put in the multi-packs, sent to stores, and then the consumer would buy it, and then either recycle it or compost it, and then the process can start again. So that was something I was really pleased with, as I feel like, I don't know, might speak for myself here, but I feel like on the course we don't really tap into that kind of side of manufacture. I think it's kind of been a big thing this year that we've been like, oh, we need to consider that. So I did do a bit of it on placement, and I did kind of utilise that knowledge here. But yeah, this is it, my little pot.
Is it so if they're about to eat it, do they have to take, so how is kind of like the user reaction? So they take the strip off first, and then do they move the bit inside, or?
So this was kind of something that within testing was a bit ambiguous still, maybe. There are instructions included on the multi-pack which kind of say how you'd like peel the strip, you'd twist, then remove the spoon.
I feel like
open
you
and
could have, so you see the tab where you pull it? I feel like it just needs a big arrow.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's all it would do.
Like a 1 and a 2 or something on here.
Yeah.
Something as simple as that, I think, could really help to kind of just solidify that with the user. I mean, theoretically, there is probably a number of ways you could interact with it and it'd still perform the same. You could take the spoon out first, then peel the seal off and then move it. Or...
I like the fact that you can kind of mix it all together without having to open the lid.
Yeah.
I mean, like I've had it before if I've got a Muller corner and the lid's like
up. And you pull it a bit hard.
Yeah, and then it just goes everywhere.
Oh no, really?
Yeah.
That's so disappointing.
Yeah.
I like that.
Or when you have to, I mean, it might still be the same because separation happens. But when you have to scrape the yogurt into itself, like around the sides, I think that sort of pot kind of negates that a little bit more because it's closer in, whereas their one is like, it's quite satisfying, but I don't know. In my head, I'm always like, oh.
No, I do get what you mean. But yeah, I think in kind of definitely at the concept review and other stages, the form of this has changed massively. I think the key leading principle was this mechanism in the top. That was definitely something I knew was going to be kind of the make or break for this. So I think one of the first prototypes I 3D printed was probably about double the size. It was absolutely massive, and I didn't realise it was like this wide, and this tool probably fit about 3 yogurts in there. But yeah, it's shrunk a lot in size, and I think also kind of considering these ergonomic factors like the lip, because originally there was 2, and then it kind of came up to the point where if the yogurt all gets stuck in the bottom and you can't reach it out. Yeah, a lot of it was driven by continuous focus group feedback and things like that, because it was really kind of centered around the user and how they interpreted it as much as how well I could design it. It's kind of a two-way thing.
Well, I was going to ask, is that the same size portion as they currently have?
Yeah, so it's 124 grams, can fit it just about. But I did have a bit of a moment where I was like, I've kind of rounded off these corners, and obviously you do miss a little bit of kind of volume by taking off that right angle, but it did work, which I was very pleased with. And also because it's kind of going to be sold in this multi-pack, I wanted to incorporate something that was going to make it easy to sit in the fridge, not going to take up loads of room. So I've added in these little protruding bits and kind of recessed bits on the bottom so you can stack them really easily in the fridge. I
was wondering what that was.
Yeah, I kind of, I don't know, I guess it's something that could be overlooked, but it might kind of be that kind of little bit of kind of spontaneity that they go to stack it and they're like, oh, it's made for stacking.
Yeah.
So I feel like that could work quite well, because I think at first I wanted to design this really nice secondary pack that was going to be really easy to take them out of in the fridge, and kind of, when you have like Coke cans and you pull it and they just kind of fall down. And then I realised nobody actually wanted to keep it in the cardboard in the fridge, which is fair. Which led to this kind of creation of stacking, which I feel like worked even better.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's got like a bit of a raised lip on the edge. What's that for?
This bit here is just kind of to make it easier to hold in your hand, as opposed to if it was kind of just this cylinder, it's a bit harder. You might have to kind of put quite a firm grip on it. You don't want it to slip straight through. But this just means it can rest on the top of your hand really nicely. And when you've got it open, of course. When you've got it open, it just makes it a bit easier with like the weight distribution of the lid kind of going over to one side. It kind of balances quite nicely.
Yeah, it works really well. Is it resealable, or is it something that you would eat all in one?
So I think the main thing I wanted to achieve was this reclosure element, which technically I have because you can put the lid back on. I think the bit where I maybe fell a bit short was the actual security of the reclosure. I'm not sure if that was to do with the material I made it with. So this is resin printed, and I did have to sand quite a bit off in order to get the spin on it.
Yeah.
As there was just like a little bit of excess that hadn't come off in the cleaning. So yeah, I'm not sure how that would work out if it was made out of the wheat fibre or not, but it's something I definitely kind of want to look into and make it a bit more secure. I think it could kind of elevate it a bit more if you could kind of have a few mouthfuls, be able to clip this lid back on, and then it not kind of just reopen in your bag.
Yeah.
How would you go about kind of manufacturing this? Have you got kind of a method that you would use, or? I
think so. I think I kind of knew from the start it was going to be a sustainable material, and my first thought was card, and then I kind of looked into the kind of fibre-based solutions as a wider term, and landed on wheat fibre. So I knew it was going to have to be made from pulp. So when I was on placement, I was kind of lucky enough to visit a few paper manufacturing sites at DS Smith, and went down to their paper mill. So I kind of knew that it was achievable with this type of material. So I kind of did a bit of digging and onto YouTube and how it's made, classic kind of videos like that. And there's 2 different types of processes that I'd use for this. So this main pot would be 3D like molded from the pulp. So it's kind of like a 2-part cast that comes together. It's vacuumed in. It's got like a wire mesh on the inside. So it's kind of together like this. It forms the shape. It's released and then dried. So that's how you end up with the 3D shape. And then for these bits, because they're a bit more simple, you can just kind of 2D mold them. So when you think of like an egg carton, so it's just the same process as that. So yeah, it's relatively simple for what it is, but it does require quite a bit of capital investment if you haven't already got it on site.
I mean, I was thinking when you first said about the wood pulp.
Wheat fibre pulp, yeah.
Wheat fibre pulp, I was thinking, it's like quite a soggy product.
Yeah.
So like being inside the thing is going to melt it, but this is a good point. If it's a dairy product,
yeah,
it's going to be on the shelf for
not long.
weeks.
Yeah. So think that was definitely something I needed to consider for this, and it was brought up in the concept review by Müller, and from kind of I feel like
Did Müller actually come in?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
we had a little kind of Zoom call with them. Which was really, really useful. And I think they're coming in after Christmas as well, which will be fun to finally show them. But yeah, from placement, I knew that within foods, you have to have kind of barrier properties within the materials you're using. So that's how I came across like the seaweed coating. So that would be sprayed on after the parts have been molded. And it just kind of creates this barrier between the product and the fibre itself. Obviously, it would just seep straight through if you didn't have anything on there. And yeah, not do kind of a variety of different seaweed based things and products that can replace traditional like polypropylene liners and things like that make it not recyclable. But this is 100% recyclable, biodegradable.
I think I've seen the seaweed thing before. I think it wasn't anything to do with making products, but I think they used it to spray the outside of like vegan sausages.
Oh,
So,
really?
if you have a sausage, like you buy it and it's, I don't know, it's like got a bit of a shell. I crunch. Yeah,
That actually makes a lot of sense now. I'm a vegetarian.
Oh.
So yeah, usually don't eat that bit, to be fair.
I know that Notplev were the ones that did you see the marathon? And they had like all the water. So instead of having water bottles, which is like ridiculous amounts of waste every year for the London Marathon, they were commissioned to do like the little pods.
Yeah.
And the squash pod, like the Lucasade pods. So I think they expanded that into, I can't remember, they've done quite a lot now, haven't
Yeah,
they?
they've got quite a few different technologies.
Sauce pouches as well, but then they've also got like just
they do little like oil things and stuff.
and also I think they even do like protective packaging for like gadgets and stuff as well.
Oh, really?
I think so. That might be wrong. Maybe check.
Well,
but fact check me.
I'll put it up on screen.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they do, because when I was looking into it, I was like, that's so cool. But we've actually Ella Sainsbury on our course. I don't know if a girl on our course. She worked with them for placement.
Yeah.
So she got a lot of experience. It sounds amazing.
Maybe more to come.
Yeah.
Or not play then.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you next week.